TensorFlow is an end-to-end open source platform for machine learning developed by Google along with many enthusiastic open source contributors. Millions of ML developers use TensorFlow across the globe and many famous applications that we use runs on TensorFlow. TensorFlow is scalable and flexible enough to run inside data center as well as on a mobile phone. It can run on a single machine as well as multiple machines in distributed setting. In this video, we are going to understand the secrets behind this extreme flexibility and scalability of TensorFlow. Before understanding how TensorFlow is built, let us get familiar with basic concepts of TensorFlow's programming model. Every computation in TensorFlow is described as directed graph, which is composed of nodes and edges, where nodes are the operations or functions and edges are the inputs and outputs flowing in or out of those functions. Inputs and outputs in TensorFlow are called tensors. Tensor is nothing but a multi-dimensional array for which the underlying element type is specified at the graph construction time. Client program that uses TensorFlow creates a data flow graph using supported programming languages, C++ or Python. An operation is a function which has a name and represents an abstract computation. For example, matrix multiplication, addition, subtraction, etc. An operation can have attributes which should be provided or generated at the time of graph construction. One common use of attributes is to make operations polymorphic. For example, let us say we have this function which takes a as input and returns a plus a as output. Now the input attribute a can be passed as different data types like integer, float or string. So these types of functions are called polymorphic. Now, since we understand what are operations, let us understand kernel. A kernel is a particular implementation of an operation which can run on specific device. For example, CPU or GPU. Already implemented kernels are defined in TensorFlow binary. Client program interacts with TensorFlow system by creating session. Session interface has extended methods to create a computation graph, and it supports run method which computes output of a particular node in execution graph by providing required inputs. Before TensorFlow version 2.0, users need to manually create sessions to maintain computation graph. But after TensorFlow 2.0, you don't need to create sessions explicitly. Whenever you create tensors or write operations, the session is automatically invoked and execution graph is created. In most of the machine learning tasks, computation graph is executed multiple times, and most of the ordinary tensors do not survive after single execution. That is why TensorFlow has variables. Variable is a special kind of operation that returns a handle to a mutable tensor that can survive across multiple executions of graph. The trainable parameters of model are often stored in tensors held in variables. Let us now take a look at the core architecture of the TensorFlow. So, here is how it looks. The first layer of TensorFlow contains device layer and network layer. Device layer contains implementation to communicate with different devices like CPU, GPU, or TPU in the operating system where TensorFlow will run. Whereas network layer has implementations for communicating to different machines using different networking protocols in the distributed trainable setting. The second layer of TensorFlow contains kernel implementations for mostly used operations in machine learning. The third layer of TensorFlow contains distributed master and data flow executor. Distributed master has responsibility to distribute the workload to different devices on the operating system, whereas data flow executor optimally executes the data flow graph. The fourth layer exposes all the functionalities as API, which is implemented in C language. C is chosen because it is fast, reliable, and can run on any operating system. The fifth layer extends support for Python and C++ clients. The last layer of TensorFlow has training and inference libraries implemented in Python and C++. Let us now understand the crucial implementation aspect of TensorFlow, which makes it extremely scalable. There are in total three types of device systems that exists, which are single device system, single machine multiple device system, and multiple machine system. TensorFlow can run on all of these device systems. Here is how TensorFlow executes data flow graph. Whenever the client process wants to execute graph, master process starts running. The responsibility of master process is to create worker process which will distribute the TensorFlow graph on available devices. This phenomena is called node placement. Although this diagram is for single machine and for distributed system, the diagram looks similar, but here we have multiple workers created by master process and utilizes devices from different machines. Note here that a single device can be a part of multiple worker processes. TensorFlow assigns names to available devices. TensorFlow uses placement algorithm to distribute data flow graph to available devices. This placement algorithm uses cost model, which contains estimated size of inputs and output tensors as well as the estimates of the computation time required for each graph node. The cost model is either statistically estimated based on heuristic functions or it is measured based on actual placement decisions taken in past. The placement algorithm also runs a simulated execution of graph in order to decide on which devices to assign to particular node. We will talk in more depth about the placement algorithm in the later section of the video. Now, you may have a question that can TensorFlow execute on any device? Or what are the criteria that a device should fulfill to be a TensorFlow compatible device? So, there are basically three criteria that a device should have to execute TensorFlow. A device must implement methods for issuing kernel for execution. It is important because the core execution of TensorFlow depends upon kernels. The device should allow allocating memory for input and output tensors. And the device should implement methods for transferring buffers to and from host memory. Once the node placements are done, the graph is partitioned into a set of subgraphs on different devices. TensorFlow has implemented special nodes for communicating between devices. At runtime, TensorFlow creates send and receive nodes to transfer data across different devices. The implementation of send and receive nodes uses protocols like RDMA and TCP. These two extra nodes create two problems. Problem 1 is that they will require extra space, and problem 2 is that they will increase the latency time of execution since the cross-device communication is often slow. To solve these two problems, TensorFlow forces all user tasks of particular tensor on particular device to use single receive node. This ensures that data for needed tensor is only transmitted once and the memory for the transferred tensor on the destination device is only allocated once. While executing TensorFlow graph, failure can occur in variety of places because of many reasons like error in communication or memory limitations. When a failure is detected, the entire graph execution is aborted and restarted from scratch. But as we already discussed that TensorFlow has variables which are persistent, a variable node is connected to save node and restore node. Save nodes are executed every n iterations or every n seconds. Save nodes write the content of variable nodes to persistent storage. Similarly, the restore nodes writes the data in variables whenever the graph execution restarts. So, this is why graph execution resumes from where it stopped and not from scratch. Let us now understand the components of TensorFlow which makes it flexible to run very smoothly. Almost all optimization algorithms in machine learning compute the gradient of cost function with respect to set of inputs. Because of its common need, TensorFlow has built-in support of computing gradients automatically. Let us understand how TensorFlow does it using example. For this graph, the cost function is c and inputs are w, x and b. When TensorFlow needs to compute gradient of tensor c with respect to tensor x, it first finds the path in the computation graph from x to c. Then it backtracks from c to x, and for each operation in the backward path, it adds a node to TensorFlow graph, composing the partial gradients along with backwards path using chain rule. The gradient function then takes these partial gradients and input tensors and compute the gradient of c with respect to x. TensorFlow module tf.autodiff has class gradient tape which performs automatic gradient computations. Automatic gradient computation complicates memory optimization problem for placement algorithms because computation of gradients can arbitrary. TensorFlow is working on to improve memory management in this case by using more sophisticated heuristic functions. More often, a client program wants to execute just a subgraph of the entire execution graph. For this, we don't need to compute all the operations in execution graph. We only need to execute operations that are in the path from inputs to the target output. TensorFlow does the same. TensorFlow adds extra feed nodes to inputs to pass the input data, and it adds extra fetch node to target output. Then it will compute the subgraph, and fetch node will receive the output from subgraph. Most of the time, many of us have experienced that using conditional statements and loops can lead to more concise and efficient implementation of machine learning algorithms. But here, there is a problem. If you are using conditional statement, then the execution will depend on input data and it is difficult to create execution graph beforehand. To avoid this, TensorFlow has small set of primitive control flow operations in case of conditional statements as well as loops. For conditional statements, TensorFlow primitives are switch and merge. TensorFlow creates all the possible subgraphs beforehand and executes only the one as per the input and then outputs the result. In case of loops, TensorFlow primitive operators are enter, leave, and next iteration. It helps TensorFlow to create cyclic graphs and dynamic computation for different number of iterations. As a small detail, we just want you to know that the subgraph created as part of loops may be distributed to different devices. TensorFlow solves this problem by adding extra control flow nodes at the time of graph partitioning itself. tf.cond and While loop are the high-level functions that helps TensorFlow to transform graph to handle conditional statements and loops. Although input data can be provided to graph using feed nodes as we saw earlier. But another common mechanism used for training large machine learning models is to have special input operation node in the graph. These input operation nodes can be configured with set of file names which yield a tensor containing one or more examples from the data stored in those set of files. This is more flexible approach because almost all data sets are stored as files. With the help of tf.keras.input and tf.keras.input layer, we can add input operation nodes to the execution graph. Queues are a very useful feature that TensorFlow has implemented. They help different portions of the graph to execute asynchronously and also to hand off data to through enqueue and dequeue operations. One use of queues is to allow input data to be pre-fetched from disk files while a previous batch of data is still being processed by the computational portion of a machine learning model. They can also be used for many other kinds of grouping, including accumulating many gradients in order to compute some more complex combination of gradients over a larger batch, or to group different input sentences for recurrent language models into bins of sentences that are approximately the same length, which can then be processed more efficiently. In addition to normal FIFO queues, TensorFlow also has shuffling queues which helps to shuffle data before feeding to execution graph. A container is the mechanism in TensorFlow in managing longer-lived mutable state. As we know that variables have long-lasting persistent storage, that is only because of containers. Default containers can persist states until the process terminates. But there are also special containers that can be shared between two completely disjoint execution graphs. Let us now look at some of the factors that TensorFlow considers to optimize the execution graph. Since the computation graph is constructed by many different layers of abstraction in the client code, computation graphs can easily end up with redundant copies of the same computation. TensorFlow identifies these redundant copies of operation nodes and replaces them with only one node to improve memory optimization. As we already said that TensorFlow functions are polymorphic, it means that inputs with different types can be passed to the function. But TensorFlow execution graph has to create different subgraphs for different types inputs. So, to avoid this, TensorFlow uses tracing. As part of this, TensorFlow only creates subgraph when particular type of input is passed first time. After that, it will use the same subgraph created for that particular type of input. This cache subgraph maintained by TensorFlow is called concrete functions, which can be explicitly called for specific type of inputs to get direct output from that particular subgraph. tf.function helps users to implement operations that can be traced. TensorFlow often make use of pre-existing highly optimized numerical libraries to implement kernels for some operations. For example, there are a number of optimized libraries for performing matrix multiplies on different devices, including BLAS and QBLAS, or GPU libraries for convolutional kernels for deep neural nets such as CUDA-ConvNet and QDNN. TensorFlow make fairly extensive use of the open source eigenlinear algebra library for many of the kernel implementations in the system. Some machine learning algorithms, including those typically used for training neural networks, are tolerant of noise and reduced precision arithmetics. For example, in of the output of any particular computation, only some number of precisions can affect the later computation. In short, we don't require the output with these many precisions after decimal point. In these type of cases, TensorFlow gives flexibility to insert special conversion nodes to convert 32-bit floating point number to 16-bit before transfer, and after data transfer to other device, it again convert it to 32-bit floating point number. This phenomena is called lossy compression, and it helps decreasing latency of transferring the data. Let us now look at the two programming idioms that you can use to optimize the model training. Data parallelism is nothing but computing operation on chunks of data in parallel. For example, let us say you want to compute gradient for model with batch size 1000. What we can do here for faster computation is that we can use 10 replicas of the model to each compute the gradient for 100 elements and then combine the gradients and apply updates to the parameters synchronously. Model parallel training is where different portions of the model computation are done on different computational devices simultaneously for the same batch of examples. This diagram shows an example of a recurrent deep LSTM model used for sequence-to-sequence learning parallelized across three different devices. Although TensorFlow works amazingly well, but there are some improvements and features on which TensorFlow team is working on. Number one is reusability of component subgraph. As part of this feature, user can specify entire subgraph of computation as reusable component. Number two is reusability of components across programming languages. For example, let us say you implemented a component in Python, then TensorFlow will support using that component in C++ program. Number three is improvement in node application, time computation, etc., meaning improvements in heuristic functions for better node placements. And the last one is support for other programming languages. So, as of now, TensorFlow supports Python, C++, and JavaScript, but in future it may support other languages as well. With this, we are at the end of the video. We appreciate you for watching this and suggest you to like the video and subscribe to the channel because we do tremendous amount of hard work to bring this to you. Also, don't forget to comment on what you liked the most in the video. Thank you and stay safe.